Hello and welcome to episode 49 of the GC Sunscast. G'day Suns fans and welcome to the Gold Coast Suns show by fans for fans. I'm your host Shane. Joining me on the line is Tom, as he does each and every week. Welcome to the show, Tom.
Yeah, g'day Shane. How you going, mate?
Oh, a bit dusty. It was a big weekend for me. I had my birthday yesterday and celebrated in perfect style. On the Saturday, I went up to the Gabba game to watch the Suns. Now, the actual football wasn't that remarkable, but I had the pleasure of meeting some amazing Suns fans, some of the most passionate Suns supporters you would ever meet, and they are actually the family members of some of our favourite Suns players. So I had a great night, caught up with them, ended up going back to the Pineapple Hotel after the game and having a bit of a party, or as one of them so politely put it, the private pineapple. So, no, it was a fantastic night, and I got a lot of really good stuff. Just the level of closeness that even the parents of some of our Suns players have just really shines through. And if that's just the tip of the iceberg and the kids are that much more connected and close with each other, then the club's in a really strong position with its youth. What about you, Tom?
Some of those parents have actually moved up here or moved down here to support their kids, and isn't it great, the family behind the players? Like you don't get that a lot.
No, you don't. And it's what the club needs. The club they market themselves as a family club as far as to supporters, trying to get the kids along to games and stuff. But they really need to market themselves as a family club to the players as well. They need to really get the family members of the players involved every single step of the way, make them feel included. No, it was a great night. I even got to sit and watch the football with a couple of the families and really see it through their eyes of how they would watch games. And obviously it focused on their son being out in the field, but they were also very critical at the same time as being supportive. So I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, sure.
Now, Tom, this is the start of our GC Sunscast showcase. So leading up to episode 50, we're currently 49, we have a special week ahead of us. So not only do we have tonight's episode, we have an episode Thursday night, which at this stage, let's say it'll come on the air at about 6:30, and we're going to discuss the teams, which would be announced at 6:20. So that's a bit of a selection episode we're going to have on Thursday night, a bonus. And then on Sunday at 4:30 p.m, the Suns take on the Hawks down at Marvel Stadium. So we're going to actually provide a bit of Suns commentary and give a bit of a Suns biased point of view to go along with watching the game. So if you're sitting there watching the game at home, mute the TV, jump onto our Facebook, click on the link and try to sync up the audio with what you're hearing. And it should be fairly close to live. You should get a really good view, a really good taste of... we're probably not going to be the greatest commentators, but if anything's to go by, it's going to be Jared Roughhead's farewell game. So the commentary is pretty much going to be everything Hawthorn. So this will provide a Suns commentary, a Suns flavour to the Suns supporters. So we're going to have a go at that.
Yeah, terrific. And the best thing about that is that we, as you say, we can provide a counterpoint. Obviously, Roughhead deserves a farewell game, and it deserves a bit of a bit of commentary about how his journey from being drafted very highly and priority picks for Hawthorn. It's a timely thing to talk about, and how the Suns are going. Whether we get beaten by 100 points or make a contest of it, it doesn't matter exactly. What we want to do is provide something that in the future it might look like this were we to be commentating particular games if our sponsorship gets up to a certain point. and certainly lately we've been getting new sponsors. So it's all looking onward and upward for us, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the benefits of us doing this live commentary thing to the game is our chat function on our live show is going to be active. So fans will be able to actually chat to us while we're live on the air and tell us their thoughts, and we'll read the best out as we're on air. So it's a really interactive experience, hopefully, for both us and the fans. Now, as you mentioned, it all depends. If you want this a regular thing, that all depends on our Patreon support. And we have new Patreon this week, Brody Burgess. So congratulations, Brody. Welcome to the team. And you jump into the queue with Old Soul, Jack's dad, Paul Vosti, Tom Kim, Chris Moore, Brody Burgess, James Wood, and Tony. Those are our Patreon supporters. You can find the link on our Facebook and jump on and join the club.
And you can remain anonymous if you like, as you can tell from the names of our sponsors. Some of them want to give their real names, and some of them give their avatar names on social media or whatnot. We won't speculate as to the surname of our latest. Seems like it might be someone close to the game, but we won't speculate on who that might be. We welcome all people of all stripes, and as you said, Shane, you spend time with the families, and they're all super supportive of the Suns and of the concept that we're doing. And if any of them are listening live or later on in the recording, then welcome to the show, and we hope you enjoy what we're trying to do to promote your boys.
Yeah,
and girls.
Yeah, exactly. It's obviously AFLW with the Suns now as well. But I do want to give a special shout out to the families that I met. It made such a special birthday for me, even though they didn't know it was my birthday. I kept that bit quiet. But they were shouting me beers all night, and it was just an amazing thing. So special mention to the Bose family, the Ainsworth family, Lukosius family, Fiorini family, and Joyce families. Really hope we get to see each other again at upcoming games, and love hearing from you guys and love chatting with you.
And I must admit, I apologise for not being able to make it. I was feeling very, very poorly, and only pulled the pin at about midday, and just before the NEAFL started, because I was actually really looking forward to going to see both games and meeting up with people. But this kind of thing happens. So next time,
you all have to.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into the first bit of news for the day. I posted this up on Facebook last week, I think the next day after our episode. Damien Barrett does a podcast on the AFL.com.au website called In the Game, and last week he had Tony Cochrane on. So
which is kind of if to help our fans who aren't really that familiar, or maybe they are very familiar. Damien Barrett and Tony Cochrane are very different people, and I thought it was a really interesting choice of guest for Damien Barrett. So I guess we're going to hear about why I believe that is the case.
Yeah, well, we'll get into the into what was discussed. I've got a clip here to play. Just give the fans a taste of Tony Cochrane in action.
You all have to find something to write about. You all have to make up enough shit so that, there's output. But the truth of the matter is, very, very, very few of you actually come up and spend significant time in our environment and go, let's really analyse this. Let's really dig deep. Let's have a look at the success behind this club.
So that was Tony Cochrane having a crack at the AFL media and how they're very quick to jump on and criticise the club when very few of them have actually come up here and seen what's going on. I mean, you hear in the media so often that they're always talking about, this club doesn't deserve a priority pick. They've just thrown away everything in the last 9 years. Well, that's not accurate. Yeah, we did, but it's a completely different off-field team. We've got Mark Evans in the role now. We've got John Haynes, Stuart Dew. All the off-field pieces are different to what they were 5 years ago, and they never seem to bring that point up, do they?
No, they don't. And I tell you what, if that episode's still available for people to listen to, and it hasn't aged any since the game. It was. I was just thinking, point after point after point that we seem like we're labouring 49 episodes now where we've been labouring the same points, and we often get tired of listening to ourselves go over the same arguments, and yet Tony Cochrane just, he's so convincing and so passionate, and he makes really, I've just said that we've been making the points. He's reinforcing the points we're making and making new points, just really good arguments, and, using statistics and data that are fresh, saying that, the Gold Coast has multiplied the involvement in the game in the Gold Coast region. And he didn't even have to talk about the Queensland-wide region where, we're promoting the game. The Suns brand is being promoted all over Queensland, northern New South Wales, and even in the South Pacific Islands. So, it was just really great. I felt really proud.
Yeah, he goes into everything, talking about the development and growth of AFL football in Queensland, like we've discussed. He chats about the concessions that the AFL gave GWS. He just really stood up for northern clubs, in particular the Gold Coast Suns, with comments like this.
Is it the AFL or is it the VFL? Is it?
It's things like that which needed to be said because no one else says them.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's been doing this his whole career. So he's such an asset to have for us. And as he goes on to say, he's basically been appointed by the AFL to manage and to lead their product. So he could be, they could get rid of him tomorrow. But why would they? Because he's such a good asset.
Of course we're going to survive. Over my dead body will we not survive? Of course we're
so you just got to love it. I've got a full soundboard now of Tony Cochrane audio samples, so I'll be pulling those out as we go along through all the episodes. I'll probably get a nice workout on game day on Sunday. All right, Tom, let's move into the next topic, which is a serious one. Now, Braden Crossley has been provisionally suspended by ASADA for having found a cocaine metabolite in his system. Now, first of all, let's start by saying just because they found a cocaine metabolite in his system doesn't mean he's taken cocaine. It was really quite disgusting to see on social media and other forums so many people immediately jumping and calling him and some nasty names and an idiot and stuff when we don't really have all the facts just yet. And you were telling me off air there's some tea or something which could produce the same effect?
Yeah, well, essentially what's shown up in the test is it's a byproduct of the manufacturing process of cocaine. Now, we should be really, really careful here because we know that we're not bloody chemists or scientists or anything, but what we know, cocaine comes from the poppy, and it's a naturally occurring thing, and it goes through a chemical process, and in that chemical process, one of the byproducts is what's shown up. Now, you can synthetically manufacture that same thing. And so what it leads to is certain products that are out there that haven't been listed by ASADA as being performance enhancing or against anything can lead to a false positive. And now for listeners who think, well, what the hell is he going on about? A false positive is basically what's shown up here. It's shown up as this, but for ASADA to test Braden Crossley's urine for every single drug that is known to enhance performance, he'd need to pee a river. So they've basically done a cross section of what he's provided, and this thing's come up. Now, this thing could be in a tea, a particular, not necessarily performance enhancing, but a health product or some sort of, we know ASADA went right through the Bombers and just destroyed them for years. And ASADA, like my personal opinion of ASADA, they're bullies. They really they need results, and they're going for results. And they've unfortunately they've found, like, no AFL player has cocaine in their urine on game day. I don't care what anyone says about AFL players partying or whatever. Like, it's not the individual who's made a stupid decision. There's this really strange but adverse finding, and he's got to face up to it. He's going to have to face it. He's got his own lawyers. He's got, it's not presumption of innocence here either, Shane. It's he has to prove his innocence. They're saying this is a guilty verdict, and he has to go back and prove it's not. So that's different to any other day in court. The three outcomes here, Shane, if he's guilty, 4 years ban, and that starts on the day that he stopped playing a couple of months ago. Interim outcome is that he proves that he didn't knowingly ingest the substance or didn't put it in his body unknowingly, which you can't exactly inject yourself and not know about it, but things can pass your lips. And there are many other athletes who argue this case, and they either found innocent or they get found that they unknowingly ingested it, but they still get banned for 2 years, which is what he's facing. Or his lawyers prove him innocent, and that's what we're supporting. We support his family, and that's really important because Braden Crossley is like a father-son for the Gold Coast. His old man played for Southport, and is a Hall of Famer. His younger brother potentially will be drafted this year or next year, or he'll play for Southport like his dad. And it's really important not to just throw him right under the bus. And I think a lot of people have, and I find that pretty disgusting.
Yeah, I mean, you've pretty much said it all there. I believe Braden Crossley's father came out with a statement late last week, declaring that they were fighting the charges. At least that's what I've heard. Yep. And they have to do that. Like you said, he's been forced a guilty verdict on top of him, and now he has to be proven innocent. A bit of a strange thing. Again, 4 years for an illicit substance by ASADA. That's a pretty strange thing as well. I'm pretty sure I only remember Shane Warne missing a year of cricket in the early 2000s or late 90s.
Well, you got to remember that the AFL and ASADA are at loggerheads.
Yeah.
Any time that ASADA can go after an AFL player and also club and also the competition, so it's a layered thing. There's an individual, and then there's an individual within the club, and there's the club, and then there's the AFL. So there's 4 layers to the thing, and then there's ASADA, who the AFL hate, and ASADA goes after. I mean, look at what ASADA did to Essendon.
Yeah.
I mean, the same thing in rugby league. I know you're not big on rugby league, but the same thing, the same guy was at Cronulla in the NRL when ASADA came out and said, we're going after Essendon and we're going after Cronulla and we're going to put bans in place of players. Cronulla went on their knees, begged for mercy and said, we're so sorry, we'll accept anything you give us. Half their players had already left the club. And they got suspensions of 6 or 8 weeks and some fines. And their coach got suspended for a year. The coach has since been knocked out of the entire competition because while he was suspended, he was still coaching the club, but that's another story. James Hird, same thing, got suspended for a year, came back, and what happened. But Essendon fought. And when Essendon fought, all their players who'd been there at the time got suspended for a year, years after the initial thing had happened. So ASADA and AFL, they hate each other. So, Gerber, we love you, but it's going to be tough. And they've lawyered up, and the club's supporting them, and you just hope that sanity prevails, and you just know that ASADA have just got a really crappy track record on this. They really just go for results, and if they can get a victim, that's a win.
All right, well, I think we'll leave that topic there, but our thoughts go out to the Crossley family. We can only imagine this must be hard on them, especially young Ashton, who's still playing in the academy. So thoughts go out to them. All right, well, let's chat about injuries. Another I don't know. Why do we bother this?
Week,
the injuries just keep mounting.
We had an injury-free week, and we have had players coming back from injury, but now we're...
Have we only had one injury-free week this whole year? It feels like it.
Yes.
All right, so this week Miles hurt himself in the game with an ankle issue, syndesmosis or something like that. He's out for the rest of the season. And McLennan as well hurt his ankle, I believe, at training, so he didn't play in the NEAFL, and he's out for the season
we did speculate that's what had happened because there'd been no reports, and suddenly he wasn't named in the team, either team. So that's a freak injury. You know, he's trying to get into the senior team, and he's training hard, and so you know it happens, but it doesn't help.
So the only players not out for the season or declared out is Reardon and Archie. They are 1 to 2 weeks on the injury list. So, can't wait for the season to come to finish up. Can we, Tom?
No, and you know we've got hopes that Rankin might come back, but that's just hopes. You know, they've still got him as TBA, so I think they're hopeful. Reardon and Archie won't play this week, might play the week after. So there's between 0 and 3 players who might come back, and there's 9 guys who have no chance. And we've even got a bigger list than everyone else, but even with that, we've got 48 players on the list and only 36 are available for selection. And it didn't help our NEAFL boys over the weekend to have so many players out, but yeah, it just seems to be year after year that we've just got this thing, and you just hope that maybe with the submission to the AFL Commission that we don't just ask for a priority pick, but we also ask for things like a longer list or the longer Category B list, for example, where we could have 6 or 8 players who are going to be able to play NEAFL if they're called upon, but can't play AFL unless our injury list gets so bad that they have to be upgraded to Category A. So, you know, and I think that's happening because with retention of academy players, that's that's how they'll do it, by extra list spots. But what do you reckon?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess something like that.
What do you reckon? What do you reckon about the injury list and how to sort of avoid it like the Lions do?
Well, that's just down to the performance and medical team, isn't it?
Is it?
Well, we know for a fact the Suns haven't had the greatest medical team, and they keep changing it every few years, and that does have an effect on players as their bodies constantly get sort of pushed and shoved between different regimes. So I think next year would be the second year under this current regime with Alex Rigby.
Yeah.
So maybe next year we get an improvement in the list, in the injuries. But a lot of them are injuries from knocks, from contact injuries. So, yeah, I'm not sure how you can prevent a lot of them.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I mean, they're injuries that happen in game or in training. They're not, which was where injuries come from. But everyone except for Holman was a fresh injury. So Holman was carrying the injury right through the preseason and through the games he played. The other thing I'll say, though, is it seems like if we were in contention for finals, how many of these players who are gone for the season would you think might actually be trying to put their hand up for selection right now? Putting them on ice is a bit of a thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, you'd think someone like... if we were in contention, who knows? Maybe Miles might be able to come back. But you've got players like Rankin as well, that a TBA, maybe they'd be finding a way in.
Brody.
It's hard to say. Brody, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but obviously the ACLs they're gone for the year. I think Collins and Rankin would be definitely have been wrapped in cotton wool, because Rankin we know has this amazing potential, and Collins did such a good job for us and needed to miss time, but why bring him back and then he gets an injury in round 23 and wrecks his pre-season? So we know he's a player for the future for us. So cotton wool. Maybe Jack Homsch, thanks for the service you've delivered. Get better and then have a full pre-season. You know, it's hard to say exactly what's going on, but you just get the feeling that the same injuries at other clubs, they wouldn't have so many weeks off. I think even Ainsworth and Bowes had a bit longer than those injuries would typically have taken at other clubs. That was certainly the commentary around the time, was about 6 weeks for each of them. End up being 8 or 9.
All right, well, we better move on to the NEAFL report. Now, you sat around at home because you didn't go to the game, so you were able to sit there and watch the NEAFL game on YouTube. What were your thoughts? The Suns lost by 25 points to the Lions, but I believe they led for most of the game, didn't they?
The first half and the second half were chalk and cheese. So the young Suns, led by obvious inclusions into the NEAFL team like Jack Martin and Peter Wright, and players returning from injury or on the comeback from injury, competing for a senior spot like Jordan Murdoch and George Holland-Smith and Brad Shear, just played their butts off. They were excellent. They were out playing. Like I was on the chat with a lot of Lions supporters, and they couldn't believe what they were seeing. They were like, "This is the best team we've played this year. This is unlike the Lions getting absolutely flogged." It was terrific footy to watch. And then after half time, you've got a bunch of 17-year-olds playing. You've got Andrew Swallow, 2 years retired from the AFL, playing in his brother's jersey. You've got Ethan Reeves, if you remember him. He was an academy player, played a lot of NEAFL for us. We didn't pick him up. He went on a church mission for a couple of years, came back, won the premiership with Southport last year, and he's coming back from injury this year, so they've loaned him to us essentially as a top-up player. So it tells you the grit of the team has got them to, in the game at three-quarter time. And the Lions are just, they're the bottom of their list, but they're the bottom 21 players. So, you can't compete against that. A heap of AFL experience in the Lions team, and the Lions will have to delist half a dozen of these players, so they're playing for their futures. So we were no chance. It knocks us out of finals contention, unfortunately. But I think the next 2 weeks of NEAFL against the Sydney Swans this week, and then the Giants in the final week, and the Giants who the NEAFL side for the Suns flogged them a couple of weeks ago. So the NEAFL side and the Gold Coast are playing finals level, but unfortunately injuries have just meant that we've lost a few close ones this year, and we're not going to make it.
Okay. So what players stood out for you? I mean, I've heard Martin got 32 disposals, 2 goals, 12 tackles. Was he influential?
First half especially. I mean, the only knock on him was that he sort of fell away towards the end of the game. But I mean, I think you could argue he was on track for a 40 possession game, and he didn't quite get that many in the end. But the whole team around him was falling away, and the Lions the Lions NEAFL team this year, they have had a few games where it's been fairly even towards half time, third quarter, and they've finished strongly. That's their thing. So yeah, he was sort of a bit of a one-man band in the sort of last quarter and a half. So, no, outstanding game. He was head and shoulders the best player in the field in the first half. Just didn't quite run it out. And Peter Wright had an interesting game because he was playing essentially as a centre-half forward, but he played 50% of the time in the ruck. The Suns, with Tommy Nichols as well, they've had 50-50. They're rotating through ruck forward together. and a bit of time off the ground, obviously. And he got 18 possessions running around the ground, taking marks and influencing the play, and 22 hit-outs, which is, pretty outstanding numbers for someone who's only meant to be about part-timer, and going up against the Brisbane Ruck Brigade, which is the best in the NEAFL. So, again, good effort. Other players, we know Connor Bednarik is on a rocket to the draft. He was good. A few of the academy guys were outplayed. Be kind to them because they put in such a great effort in the first half. But couldn't finish running with legs. Bigger bodies will always sort of always decide that they had the legs, they had the size, and they're undefeated. So valiant effort. You can sort of find honour in defeat, just not every week. But with this NEAFL side, they really pulled together, and a lot of them had never played footy together before, so you can't really blame them. A lot to look forward to for next year. A lot of players looking good. Unfortunately, it wasn't really a game for small forwards. Connor Nutting and Josh Gore didn't see much of the ball. The two Joyce brothers played together. I don't know how many times they played together. I think they've obviously played for Palm Beach back in the day, but that was good to see. Jesse Joyce had a terrific game. Michael Whiting from AFL.com.au has suggested that maybe Jesse Joyce is in the mix, or not maybe, definitely. And certainly Peter Wright and Jack Martin are back in the mix. And with Anthony Miles going out, maybe Brad Shear. However, we've got Thursday night to talk about that.
We do. So we'll leave all that for Thursday night. Give us something to talk about. We've got about 12 minutes left, so we'll jump into the AFL game. Suns, 8 goals 5, 53. Defeated by 91 points by Brisbane, 22 goals 12, 144. We had 3 multiple goal scorers with Sexton, Swallow and Day, each kicking 2 apiece. It was a tough game to watch. The first half was promising until probably 5 to 10 minutes before half-time, and you could probably argue the umpires let the momentum swing that way, didn't it, Tom?
It did. I mean, look at the score, Worm, and two-thirds of the way through the second quarter, it's a 15-point margin. The Lions score a goal, but you're still thinking, well, the Suns just had a couple of goals in a row, kind of answered the first couple of goals. Super even for the first 10 minutes of the second quarter. This is a contest, and the Suns are here and ready to fight the contest. Earlier on in the first quarter, the Lions had been given a bit of a gimme goal for a 50-metre penalty, and then the Lions kick a goal, and the Suns players have just tried so hard for the whole second quarter. They're pissed off, and Darcy McPherson gives away a free kick. Well, I just don't get it. How do you give away 12 points to the opposition for something as simple as pushing a bloke and he falls over? Like, it should be staging. It should be 6 points at the other end. And then the Lions players all come in and start all their buffy stuff. And then the umpire says, I can reverse it, Well, bloody reverse it, you idiot. Like, I'm fed up with these umpires who never, ever, ever give the Gold Coast the run of the green. And of course, that 12-point turnaround, Lions are up and about. The Suns are all got their heads down, and the Lions kicked a goal. So it was half-time, you're thinking, well, it's impossible. And then the Lions go on their massive 11 more goals. And then, of course, get to the fourth quarter, and the Suns start going, well, let's play for pride. And from there on in, after the 14 goals straight, the Suns actually kicked more goals and had the better of the contest. So take out that last 5 minutes of the second quarter, and you've got a contest, but the umpires wrecked it. So
yeah, I don't know if it's just me, but I think the umpiring's been the worst I've seen for years, this whole year, and not just in Suns games. I think it's been in other games.
Too many new rules, Shane. Like 9 new rules. And so it just exposes the umpires. So I don't blame them personally. It's just so much open to interpretation, and there are different instructions every week. It's been pathetic.
No, it hasn't been great. But it was a game that was bigger than the umpires when blokes like Charlie Cameron, just another small forward that seems to get off the leash against the Suns. The Gold Coast Suns don't have a small defender capable of shutting these blokes down. We saw Eddie Betts kick 6 goals twice earlier this year. On
Harbrow.
Yeah, what can they do? Harbrow's not a shutdown defender. I think the best we have is Jesse Joyce, and he's currently not in the side.
Well, look, I did read a couple of good reviews about Jacob Dawson, saying, look, despite the fact that Charlie Cameron kicked the 6 goals, that's Charlie Cameron, and Jacob Dawson, tried his heart out to do it. He's a 19-year-old kid. He just wasn't up to it. But he didn't have a bad game in spite of that. So he didn't let it get to him. He still played, he was still in, maybe the top 12 Suns performers. If you take that away, you can't blame defenders necessarily for someone just being so brilliant. But you're quite right. That matchup can't happen again. It needs to be. Well, I don't know if we have a person on our list who can actually contain, because Charlie Cameron, A grader, I think he's 6th or 7th on the Coleman medal. For a small forward, that's outstanding. If he had a season like this every year, he'd be winning Brownlow medals. He'd be in the conversation for the best ever at the position. So they're already talking about that.
Yeah, well, I do have one potential theory of a player that we currently have on our list that could fulfill that purpose. Now, it is a role change for this player, but I believe next year, if we are to get the priority pick, we'll be picking up both Matt Rao and Noah Anderson, 2 gun midfielders, which are going to be putting pressure on the midfield, not to mention any other experienced, mature players. We're looking at Stephen Hill, so he would slot onto a wing if we get him. But I'd say we'd be looking at similar type players that would be coming through the midfield as well.
Eddie Betts is the latest.
Eddie Betts as well, small forward.
With the Gold Coast,
but
offer on the table.
I'm talking more about the midfielders. We're expecting to get midfielders coming into the side next year.
Yep.
That's going to push some of our current midfielders out of the comp team. Now, there's one player that I think could mould himself into another role as a small defender, to take on those small defensive players like Cameron or Betts, and that's Tuke Miller.
I knew you were going to say that.
Tuke Miller
and this
is
wasn't set
our
up.
best tagger.
This wasn't set up.
Tuke Miller is our best tagger and has consistently shown he can shut blokes like Zorko and Beams and several other players that don't come to mind at the moment. But he can shut these blokes down.
He's a shutdown tagger long as they're not bigger than 6'2".
Exactly. He could be the perfect bloke to send down into a back pocket to shut out Eddie Betts or Charlie Cameron and make their life hell.
Yeah, totally agree with that. And if anything, it doesn't highlight our need to have more shutdown small defenders. It highlights our need to have more players who are able to go with the tagging role or with a rugged kind of like a loose tag where they're still getting possessions but they're limiting and curbing the influence. We just don't have enough of those. So if you're going to rob Peter to pay Paul this season, doesn't work. Tuke's needed in the middle and played a sensational game on the weekend, even though he was tagging. He still managed to get good possession numbers and was one of the better players on the field. But out of defence, he's improved his his disposal efficiency. We know he's got defensive capabilities. We know he's super fast. So how great would it be to see Tuke coming out, and he's a leader. So we have our spiritual leader, Jared Harbrow, and then our vice captain, Tuke Miller, and then Pierce Hanley. Not necessarily in defence, but Pierce Hanley in sort of as more of a defensive winger. Fantastic. That's a balanced team. if anything, we don't have the balance back there right. We've got a lot of the younger players, teenagers, kind of cutting their teeth. And when we get our best 22 and our top 6 in defence, Touk in the back pocket would really, really look effective. But we've got to replace him. So Stephen Coniglio, offers on the table, mate. Come up to the Gold Coast. You've got a starting spot in our top 22, mate.
All right. Well, we'll save that for probably a episode in the off season. Let's finish up this chat with our top 3. So I went for 1 vote with Jack Bowes, 21 disposals, 24 pressure acts, and he had about 390 metres gained. So a great performance from him in his second game back.
We've got the same 1-pointer. I totally agree with you. Jack Bowes, not just his numbers, but just his poise around the ball and his leadership on the field. Just really great to see him. But I'll just mention a couple of numbers. 4 inside 50s, but then he had 5 rebound 50s. So he's getting up and down the ground. 6 tackles, which I think is equal best for the team. The Lions did out tackle us, which is a bit of a worry, but we were no slouches. He took 6 marks. So, these are big numbers for a player, and he's not playing at 100% of his potential. So Jack Bowes is going to be scary next year. So, 1 point for him. Totally agree. Who did you have for 2?
I had Sam Day for 2. He provided a great target in the forward line. He took the most marks for the Suns. I think it was 7, and kicked 2 goals.
Yeah, terrific. I had Witsy. Witsy was immense, 53 hit-outs. Didn't get a whole lot of help, unfortunately. Sam Day, and a bit later, Chris Burgess actually looked really effective as a chop-out ruckman late in the game. That was actually a pleasant surprise to see him. He's certainly punching above his weight, and there's a really interesting aspect that he's added to his game. It's probably always been there, but no, it was good. But yeah, Witsy was just terrific all around the ground. We'd like to see Witsy get his numbers up higher to sort of 20 touches, but when he's having 53 hit-outs and playing the majority, I'd like to see him play a few, maybe 75% of the hit-outs, get someone else back in like Peter Wright to sort of take the pressure off him there.
And who was your 1 vote, touches.
Tom? So anyway, 2 points for him. Who'd you have for 3?
3 votes I had for Swallow. What about you?
Same.
Okay.
Clear cut.
So, Swallow, 27 disposals, 17 contested, and 498 metres gained. Anything else you want to add to that?
8 clearances, 5 tackles. And one last thing, whenever we screwed up or they had a goal against us, you can see David Swallow there saying, okay, what went wrong here? Teaching moments. Brilliant.
Yeah, it was a great captain's performance from David Swallow. All right, it's time for us to finish up with this episode. Unfortunately, we've had some audio issues where our live chat hasn't been able to listen to the show. So I'll have to dig into that and find out what's going on, but everything seems fine on our end, Tom. So might be an issue with the hosting company Spreaker. But we'll be back on Thursday night for another episode to chat selections. So until then, go Suns.
Go Suns.